It's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Tim and Adam Draper.
The idea is to have our certificates cross.
I want some
so that
pump-up
people can
music.
Get credit. Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry, I was closing a deal back there.
Tim just closed the deal. That's all he does. He just walks around closing deals.
You know, this conference was the first I was here before you, and I was going around talking to people, and they kept saying that big Bitcoin guy is coming to this conference, and it was the first time I'd heard you introduced not as a venture capitalist.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is really interesting.
Yeah, so
Are you sure I was the big Bitcoin guy or wasn't you?
Yeah.
About the same
Yeah,
height.
yeah, we're about the same. Yeah, well, he's shrinking, I'm growing.
So let's jump into that, right? Because tell us a story about how you acquired your first Bitcoins, how you got into it, because both of you have stories, you know, that are in the heart of cryptocurrency and blockchain.
So I'll start.
You go.
Okay.
Actually,
so,
no, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Go for it.
So for me, it was this Korean guy who came and visited me at my office, and he said, boy, Korea is really taking off with this massively multiplayer game. And it was a game that 40% of Korea was on. And I said, well, that's amazing. And he said, yeah, and I have a regular job, so I have to pay a guy to be my avatar for the 8 hours while I'm working, and then I can go back and play the game for the rest of my day. And I thought, wow, and he got me thinking that the world is going to have this land-based piece, territorial-based, and then it's going to have the virtual piece. And then I started to think, virtual, wow, you could have virtual money, you could have virtual whatever. And then these games started to come with virtual money, and I kept thinking, okay, well, but they were all isolated islands. They weren't like connecting with each other. And I thought, whenever they connect, that's the one I want to back. And then Joel Yarman came to me and said, hey, look at this thing called CoinLab. And I said, oh, that's great. And we backed CoinLab. And then I said to the founder of CoinLab, Peter Sen, I said, well, why don't I buy some Bitcoin? And he said, here, okay, I will take your money, and I'll go mine some Bitcoin for you. And I think we're gonna use this new chip that we've designed that's going to be much faster, and so we'll be able to mine it for 4 cents a Bitcoin. Right then, the Bitcoin price was about 6 cents. I said, that's great, buy a little and then do this. So he did it, and then the people who designed the chip for him front ran him. I think it was Butterfly Labs. If any of you are from Butterfly Labs, you're getting called out here. And they mined for about 6 months after they had the chip made, and we didn't get it until Bitcoin was already at $36. And then we got some, and he mined it, and then he put it into this great exchange that was the biggest exchange, biggest market share, very secure, Mt. Gox. And so then
We've heard of that one.
Yeah, so Mt. Gox is there, and somehow they disappeared the money, and as soon as that happened and it became a big press item, I thought, well, that's the end. Too bad. This was going to be a really cool thing to have a global decentralized currency. This was going to be really cool, but now it's gone. But the next day, it only dropped about 15% in value, and I started to think, what? It's still around? People care about this? And I thought, yeah, people really care. This is going to be fundamental to the world, and it's going to be so important to the world. And I started to dig into all the applications, and I said, wow, this is huge. And so I bought a little along the way, and then when this big Silk Road auction came up with the U.S. Marshal's Office, I listened to the buzz around me, and everybody was thinking they were going to get this great deal on, and so they all bid below market. And so I thought, well, if I'm really serious about it, I might as well bid above market. I bid above market, and I got it all. And I was a little overwhelmed. I thought, well, maybe I'll win 1 or 2 lots. I won them all. And so I thought, okay, well, now what? And
now this thing better work.
There goes the money. There goes the money. I'm glad you guys are all through college because it could go either way. And then Bitcoin immediately drops, into about a third of what it was.
It was a third.
And I thought, oh boy, well, whatever. It was great. Well, it lasted. But I also thought, this is really important. And so I just hung in there, and I kept believing and trying and looking for new applications. And then, of course, Adam, why don't you tell your story because, you tell your story because then they kind of converge.
Yeah. So my story is way different. I didn't lose any money in Mt. Gox, which is a bummer about that. But the first time I ever heard about Bitcoin was not actually from my dad. It was from a guy named Brian Armstrong, who's the founder of Coinbase. I reached out to him just by email, cold email. Fortunately, he was fundraising. And I said, I don't know anything about digital currency. His description on his website was just digital currency. I think it was exchange, which I don't think they were allowed to say at the time, but they did say it. And I met with him, and he was this incredibly talented developer who was leaving Airbnb. He was one of the first 150 employees at Airbnb, which was known to be a rocket ship, like a crazy rocket ship. And he was leaving that to start a company in a market that the entire market size, if you added up all of the Bitcoin in the entire world that had been released, it was a $200 million market, which Airbnb was bigger than, like in market cap. And so he sat me down and he said 3 things. And he said, at some point, the world is going to be on one financial infrastructure. I believe that infrastructure is Bitcoin. I am going to be the onboarding experience to that new financial infrastructure. And he has been unwavering in his vision of getting everyone on the planet. So his goal is 6 billion people who are all hooked up to the same network of value. And so I took that. I did invest, and then I started Boost VC. And 2 weeks later, literally I invested, and then 2 weeks later I started Boost VC. And we needed a differentiator. So I was looking at the market of accelerators, and within a 50 square miles, there were like 1,000 accelerators doing what I was doing. And so what I looked at, and I was like, well, we need to own something. And so what we ended up finding was, we looked at a couple technologies, but I had made this weird investment in this weird company called Coinbase. And so I was like, let's look at Bitcoin. And then my co-founder's brother was actually, I call him a hippie hacker, but he was an open source developer from Cal Berkeley. And he came in and gave us this hour-and-a-half talk on Bitcoin. And I was like, this is it. This is the thing. We're going to own this industry. And so what we did was we announced this, and no one was in Bitcoin. No one saw any applications. They were just thinking like Bitcoin. And I said, okay, we're going to write down every possible idea that someone could build a company with the protocol. And we wrote down 15 ideas without trying, mostly money-related sending businesses. And so we said, this is the thing, and we announced it, and we became a beacon. We were this lightning rod for all this activity to come. Where we were was San Mateo around Draper University. And we brought people from all over the world who were hacking on this weird protocol thing. And we started this network that became, like, a lot of our companies have become tokens or protocols, and they've been a part of this wave that is changing the world. So that's sort of my story.
So then Draper Associates, my venture fund, backed a bunch of these entrepreneurs, and we helped drive this ecosystem around the world. And it was really fun because the people who came to Boost originally were the guy who started CoinHako in Singapore and the guy who started
Repio in Aragon.
Repio
like
in Argentina.
Like we backed this whole wave of like Coinbases internationally, and that was a good idea. And then we it was great.
Yeah, and so that all happened, and so that's how we got involved. And now, I mean, as time's gone on, then I said when Bitcoin was at 200, I said 3 years, 10,000, and people were going, what, really? And by the way, I have a new prediction coming on April 12th. We're going to have a big party, a big block party. And
a blockchain party.
Blockchain party. And we're taking the whole block over. And it is, and I'm going to make the big prediction then. And it's sort of a similar kind of time.
I will predict that on April 12th, he will be predicting a prediction.
That sounds likely.
It was a similar kind of time. It was just sliding. Bitcoin was sliding. But I knew that it was really important. I mean, for the unbanked, for anybody to send money overseas, for people to very quickly and easily transfer large amounts of money. And I started to see new applications, all these interesting things. And we got a great window because of Adam. We got a great window on all these things that could possibly happen at Bitcoin.
I think the thing that we jumped on faster than most was that this was a global technology. And every time we were talking about it with people who were investors or whatever in the United States, they were thinking inside of these borders. And so once you start looking outside, once you start looking into other emerging countries, you see that you need to link this network. Like you need a new store value. A lot of governments aren't as good as the United States at holding people's money. And Venezuela is probably the example used the most, but one of our companies, Repio, I've brought it up twice already, but his vision is literally just to save the economy in Argentina. His pitch was 3 times in my life, my bank account has gone to 0 because of the inflation. And that is scary. Like just losing your entire value essentially overnight, but over time is not great. This was the way he saw this as an escape. And so, I think thinking global helped both of us have conviction. That's what I was trying to say.
And then
are the folks in your family, like, do they ever get tired of hearing the dinner table chats about cryptocurrency, about blockchain?
Well, one person does.
Right?
The rest of us are totally into this. One person does. My wife.
Does she take Bitcoin?
This is what I'll say.
Are we still talking about Bitcoin?
Hey, what I will say. So for the last we've been. How long has it been? 4 years. 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Is
right. Yeah.
Okay, whatever time frame that is, 6 years. We've been raving and obsessed. Like, there's this whole period of time in the crypto history that's like I call it like the philosopher time, where we have to be philosophers, like articulating the vision because nothing works. Like there was this time period where nothing was working except for Bitcoin itself. And so we had to say, eventually, this is how the world's going to work. And during that time, I don't think our family liked us very much. I would take the other side. But then it took off. Crypto took off.
We're still philosophizing, by the way.
We're still, but we're philosophizing for the next 5 years.
For the next 5 or 10. My prediction for 5 years out, well, I'm not telling you the real prediction, which is, by the way, it's after we're going to have a Bitcoin boot camp, and that's from April 9th to the 12th, and then it finishes.
And tell us about the boot camp, because that's you actually delivering education to investors or to developers? Or
to anyone who's interested. It's 4 days intensive course and like $10,000, but it's got some of the absolute best people
And is this
involved,
at Draper University where you
at Draper University.
where you go off the side of buildings and jump into the pool without water in it?
Yeah, this is at Draper University where a lot of interesting and odd, strange things happen. We haven't had an alien landing, but we've had almost everything but. But my prediction 5 years out was if that you're going to go into a Starbucks and you're going to try to pay with fiat currency, and the barista is going to laugh you out of Starbucks.
5 years.
5 years from today, if
I'd buy
you're
that.
not using
Sweet
Bitcoin,
Greens is already just saying no to. They say like digital only, like credit cards only, essentially.
Yeah, but
so the next level is
right. Even using a credit card for fiat. Well, they'll be able.
If that's
I
true.
think fiat will still be of some value, but as you notice, all the fiat holders are saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's so volatile." I look and I go, "Yeah, all these other currencies, Bitcoin's stable. All these other currencies are very volatile against it as they drift away."
Yeah. It's true. Yeah,
Into what?
Well, into not being worth very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look, here's the difference. Either your money is in your own hands, or your money is in the hands of the winds of political change and some banker who has a very large, beautiful brick building. By the way, we have both, should we tell them? Okay. We have both
yes.
are looking at banks and saying, I wonder when that one's going to be for sale. We just go around, we just go, probably get a good deal on that building.
Completely.
Good real estate.
Yeah.
We think they've got the best real estate, these banks.
Yeah.
And they're gone.
Yeah, I actually don't have a vendetta against all banks. It's just Wells Fargo.
There's no affiliation with Wells Fargo there. So tell us, I mean, why is it so important? And why is blockchain, so the underlying technology of Bitcoin? I mean, one of your quotes we put up to open the show this morning, Tim, and I mean, you flat out said this is going to change the entire trajectory of the human race.
The human race. This is bigger than the Iron Age, bigger than the Bronze Age, bigger than the Internet Age. This is global. It affects everyone. And it's going to be affecting them in all sorts of new ways. And it's not just, hey, we can send Bitcoin across borders and we're going to have a global currency that is not subject to control of some government or another. All of a sudden, we've got the blockchain. It's this perfect ledger. And with a perfect ledger, and it keeps perfect data. So with a perfect ledger and perfect data, all these industries that are all built on ledgers and data, I mean, specifically, it's like accounting clearly is affected by this. But ledgers and data also drive real estate title. They drive insurance premiums. They drive health care, all your health care records. Imagine all your health care records being easy to get to and in one place, and with a perfect record that's got your blood results and your Fitbit results and what you ate that day and your genetic history and everything else, and you've got a perfect record of all of that, and you can bring that into your doctor. It's a whole new world. But the one that's really going to change, something we're always looking for, are companies that are going into an industry where they're providing really, really bad service at a high cost. And that's anything that's sort of a monopoly or oligopoly. So everybody thinks, oh, yeah, the cable guy or, our banks or whatever. I'm saying, okay, it's the banks, the insurance companies, real estate. They're all venture capital. We're all providing bad service at a high cost. But there's one industry that's providing the worst service at the highest cost, and that is government. Government. We way overpay for the services we get, and now a whole part of government, there'll still be the territorial piece of government, but a whole part of government is tied to like pensions and it's all about insurance, medical insurance, and welfare, and all these things that are much more fairly and evenly and honestly done by the blockchain. So all of a sudden, government has opened up, and you can be Estonia and compete for citizens of the world. You can be Kazakhstan and compete for citizens of the world and do the virtual part of governance. And I'm looking for those businesses that are going to use the blockchain to either improve government or overthrow it, or make it. Or yeah, all right, we got a few of you.
You're about to soften that. You're about to soften it, or overthrow it. Oh well, or.
So that's a good segue into the regulation question, right? So what do both of you think in terms of what's happening with regulation?
Well, I've been talking. You take a shot.
Well, first, I want to. I'm going to take regulation. First, I'm going to take a shot at why it's important. And actually, the first thing that I think that Bitcoin did was it made a huge whole generation of people ask the question of what is money. And I think that just asking that question makes you more curious and makes you actually try to adventure to solve that question. And that's sort of the bet that I took like 6 years ago was like, what is money? Trying to figure out like how that can be changed. It's this weird thing that banks give us and hold for us. And then what if you don't need to do that anymore? Then what that leads to in the direction that my dad was talking about is the next question that everyone's starting to ask is what is government? And what does that look like? And what does that look like on a global nature? My dad just said, I think the borders will still be there. I don't think so. I don't see any reason that the borders should be there. I think we should be choosing jurisdiction based off of the rules that we accept as good rules. And I think we become a more liquid economy. We are a liquid economy. My gosh, they're like this digital nomad thing. Like that's a thing. I just met someone yesterday who for 6 years didn't have to pay taxes and so he was doing his job, not paying taxes he was living in Hong Kong, not paying his taxes because he was 6 months outside of the country. And then he saved enough money to fund his startup because he didn't have to pay the taxes. I was like, this digital nomad thing, like this is a thing. Like people are building up infrastructure now, hotels and like all this stuff to finance this liquid world that's happening. And Bitcoin is the money of that liquid world. So that's that. On the regulation side, like, I don't know, maybe my opinion's like completely off here, but like, good luck. Like, my God, you want to challenge the crypto economy at anything, you will lose. And like, that's how I feel about it. I think the people who are genuinely not trying to steal people's money and genuinely trying to do good will succeed in this new world. And those who are not will... Okay.
I like that. Good luck, because, you see governments, they have a choice. Either they try to control everything like China is doing right now, and they're saying, oh no, it's all illegal, and you guys, you can't do it because we want to make sure we control you with the renminbi. Well, all the Bitcoin and blockchain entrepreneurs are going, what? Really? And so then they leave.
Yeah.
And then Japan sees all these guys leaving, and they go, hey, Bitcoin's legal tender here. We're good. Come on in, baby.
Chill.
We've had a sort of a flat economy for a long time, an aging economy. We'd like some young people in here. Come on in. And then Korea says they followed China in their footsteps, and they kind of go, well, if China does it, maybe we have to. And then they go, okay, it's illegal. And then they get like 200,000 letters. People are bombing them with letters and trouble and whatever, and they finally go, okay, it's legal. I think it's, if you're trying to regulate, you're going to be playing whack-a-mole. And if you, and the people, here's what I'm worried about, the people who are regulating in, wherever that place is, Washington, D.C., they're like the grandfathers of the people who are creating this new economy. They are so far, it's 2 generation gaps away from the real economy, what's really happening in the world.
Yeah.
And I think they're just going to miss this whole thing.
So in the future, no more grandpa money. It's only going to be grandchild money.
Third generation crypto money. Yeah. I also, the thing that initially drew me to this world, this Bitcoin, it was called Bitcoin, by the way, originally, like now it's crypto and like awesome, were the people, like all of you, like everyone in this audience, like everyone is the most vibrant person I've ever met, and they're all so excited about just change. And that's really what we've been so excited about, is like, at the end of the day, like this, I have a podcast. I might as well advertise a podcast at the end of this. But like the idea is like show the personalities behind these technologies. And like I interview all these crypto people, and they're all the most dynamic person you've ever met in weird ways. I'm not saying like you're gonna like all of these people, but like they're all just so smart and so passionate, so determined. Like at the end of the day, it's people that create the change. And so, like, I don't think of blockchain as a technology. I think of it as this movement of people that's completely going to change the world. And that's why I'm excited. I'm going to leave on that.
So that's a great place to end it. Please join us in
I just
the
thought
Drapers.
I just thought about who's here in this audience. Okay, but be gentle with it. But I'm going to give you my email address, tim@draper.vc. Because we are looking for people like you who are starting businesses and getting them going around this blockchain, and particularly if they're going after government, healthcare, finance, or something big, like a big change.
I mean, is there someone after us? We can keep going. Like, I just saw the clock, and I was like, is that supposed to be the thing that's delivering us away?
Yeah,
is that like the hook?
So it turns out we're done.
Wait, are you?
Let's talk about Brinkley, this guy.
Is he regulated?
Yeah, is he regulated?
Wait, I thought we got rid of this regulation.
We don't.
This is what the government says when the inmates take over the asylum.
I spoke at this J.P. Morgan conference, like all these high net worth individuals who are trying to learn about blockchain, and before it, they took us aside and they were like, Jamie Dimon actively is like really not for crypto. We'd really appreciate it if you don't say anything about it. And I was,
because he controls all your fiat money.
Yeah, and I was looking at this person. You're like, you're gonna tell 3 crypto people not to say something about Jamie Dimon hating on this technology. And I was like, that was just like giving me a script. And maybe that was the intention, but it was not. It was not. She was like, please just don't do this. My job depends on it. And I was like, I'm sorry. Buy some Bitcoin.
Thank you guys so much for coming and talking to us. But
great, our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.